Hi there, I'm Bill Warner and I'm with EntreDot. This this presentation is one I've done since 2005. So this is almost 15 years old. This is all about how you put together your business story and tell it to others. So I'm gonna bring up the slide deck, the famous slide deck for you here, and we're going to talk through this in an effort to give you some idea of what you really need to think about in preparing your business story to present to others. This presentation is going to be very much oriented towards presenting to investors of all kinds. But if you think about it, and as I go through it, I'll probably point out to you that telling your story in this manner is applicable to a lot of situations you're going to be in. Customers may want to know your story. Potential partners in your business may want to know your story. Investors are certainly going to want to know your story because they rely on it. Potential employees may want to know your story. So what you're about to go through is going to be helpful in a lot of different situations. And I think it will teach you a logical way to show what your business is all about. So let's get right on into it. So the purpose of an investor presentation, or a presentation of any kind for that matter, is really to get the commitment for the next meeting. Investors don't write checks, hardly ever. When they first see a business story, they're going to consider it and go into due diligence. But all of this presentation is for is to instill confidence in what your business is all about in the eyes of your audience, foster excitement about the opportunity in the case of an investor, and demonstrate the attractiveness of this business to anyone who wants to participate. So that could be an investor, a future employee, and future partners, as I said before. That's the purpose of this thing. So what you're trying to do is get the next meeting in some sequence of activities that are going to take place in a relationship you have with the people you're presenting to. In the case of investors, it's raising money. So let's go further and see what this is about. First is you got to take stock of what an investor wants to see in the first place. And it's many things at once. And in the order of this presentation, we'll cover all of this. You're going to tell them the things they want to see. They want to see a believable story told quickly and concisely. Keep that in mind. That you don't blather on endlessly. You get to the point and quickly and concisely. You have a growing market, an attractive market. You know a lot about your market. You have really a good understanding of the buyers within this market, how to approach them. You're competitively differentiated from all the other people that are going to be solving the same problem as you, going after the same market need as you, in other words. But you have a really solid value proposition that does differentiate yourself and convinces your potential customers that your product or services are worth buying. You have a well thought out and achievable business model, revenue model. If you have barriers to entry, you talk about them. Sometimes you want investors, in particular, to know that nobody else can get into this business the way you have because you've got intellectual property that protects you from others doing the same thing as you. You have patent, perhaps. That you've got a really good go-to-market marketing plan and sales plan and the process to get results, get leads, and sell. That you're going to get attractive financial returns. If you're talking to investors, they want to get a return in 5 to 7 years, maybe sometimes faster. And that when they do, it's going to be a really outstanding return on their investment. So I conveniently didn't talk about the first bullet. and that is the impressive management team that you're going to be. You think about it, with investors, the only thing between success on one hand and their money on the other hand is you and your ability to pull off all of this stuff I just talked about. So they're going to have to believe in you. That takes a relationship. This is why it takes so long to get money from investors, because if they don't know you already, they're going to have to take some time to get to know you through some form of due diligence that they're going to perform. So this process of investors deciding could take a very long time, but if they already know you and you've been a hero and you've had really two successful exits as a business, previous businesses, the process could take a whole lot less time. So there's got to be an impressive management team that convinces investors that you could pull off this plan that you're gonna tell them about. Here's a chart that I'm going to just use to introduce the elements of the presentation. I call it the presentation architecture, starting in the lower left-hand corner, raising in importance and completeness of story all the way to the upper right-hand corner of the slide, where you finished your presentation by explaining that this investment that you're asking them to make is going to give them a really great return. But the sequence of events from lower left to upper right is you first explain the premise of the business, the problem you solve, in other words, or the opportunity you're chasing. Proceed then to explain the solution is and why it's so darn exciting. And then you explain the market and that it's a large and growing market, and you understand who the buyer is. You go on then to explain who else is in this market, the competition, in other words, and what their strengths and weaknesses are, and how you're going to beat their butts in the marketplace because of your differentiation. Then you take the opportunity to explain more about your product or service in a little bit more detail, particularly the points that need to be made about it solving or providing for the need that you described in slide 2 when you described the problem. So then you go on to explain how I'm going to get into this market through market awareness programs, your marketing plan, how you're going to close sales, what sales channels that you're going to be using. Then proceed to explain the management team and who they are and why they're the right people to run this business. And then show the financial results that these people are going to get and net it all out with, and here's why you're going to be interested in investing in this company, because the incredible value that your company is going to create, 3, 4, 5, 7 years down the road. That, in a nutshell, in a matter of 2 minutes, I think I just took, is what you told them in a 10 to 15 minute presentation that covered all of these points. Seems impossible, doesn't it? Well, I'm here to tell you it is not impossible. You've got to be concise. Remember I said that back in the first slide? Be concise. Net things out. Use results-oriented language. Now what I like to do is go through each one of these segments of the presentation and talk a little bit about more what is told in each of these slides. So let's go. The first thing that you got to get across to your audience is the problem you solve. I call it the premise of your business. It has to do with a problem you're solving or an opportunity you're chasing that no one else sees. And it's got to be something compelling from a buyer's perspective. So the need or the pain the buyer feels is great. And this is why it's so darn important. It's a high priority from their point of view because they're in pain. They have a problem. So it's got to be really obvious why the buyer will buy this, because the impact of this problem or the potential for this opportunity is so great that they're not going to want to pass up the chance to buy into what you're going to be selling. So it sets the context for the whole darn presentation. If you're presenting this slide where you portrayed the premise of your business and you got the audience on the edge of their chair, you got them. If they're sitting back in their chair, looking at their telephones, answering texts, and figuring out what their next meeting is, you don't got them. And that's a problem. So this is, at the beginning, a very, very important slide in order to get their attention. That what you're talking to them about is a great opportunity. Got that? Then you say, and here's how we chase this opportunity. Here's our solution to this problem. And you explain how your products and services satisfies the need. Again, from the buyer's perspective, not yours, not industry consultants. It's them, the actual people, potential customers that are experiencing this pain that I got through talking about earlier. So in addition to that, this solution, when you sell it to them, has got to give them a return on investment as well. So it's kind of leading to later, you're going to talk about pricing, but you got to set the scene that's going to be very affordable for them. It's a no-brainer. So, so this is an overview of the solution. This is not all the feeds and speeds at this time and every single feature described in detail, not at all. This is all results-oriented, quantitative benefits to the buyer, said in a few simple sentences per point. Not ad nauseum with screenshots or wireframe examples of their website, nothing like that. Get to the point quickly, the most important points that relieve the pain they're in, and make it obvious that this need that you just got through talking about in the previous slide has been met. You probably heard this before. The difference in success here is whether you're selling a must-have or a nice-to-have. The must-have is this pain is so great, they need a solution. That's the best position to be in. If you're selling something that's convenient, nice to have, but is not essential, you're going to have a harder time reaching the market. Get across that you have a must-have kind of a solution. So it establishes what business you're in, and it explains the basis for your revenue model. People with this will buy it. So now, in these first two slides, you've set the scene. You got them on the edge of your chair. Now you're going to tell them how you're going to execute this. But these are the two most important slides of this presentation. You got to knock this out of the ballpark. The next then comes, what's the market? You're going to define the market. And this can be done with pie charts or bar charts or all sorts of techniques, but this sets the context of what the business is. You want to be in a growing market. So you're going to explain your market segmentation and narrow down to the market you selected. But you start with the big picture. The overall industry landscape, you drill down to the market segments where you're going to focus and describe the actual buyer and what you know about the buyer. Explain the elements of revenue that come from this and what the maturity of this market is. So hopefully it's large and growing. You're not going to convince a lot of people that you're in a market that's flat or on the downturn. And you want to take this out for 3 to 5 years. So you do kind of the outlook of the market that prove it's growing and what this growth rate is. And then you close it out in your words about the main trends and influences are for this market. What are the factors that cause this, or drivers that cause this market to grow? So these got to be relevant economic trends. They could be technological, they could be regulatory, all sorts of other basis for why a market is what it is. But you got to get across, why is it like it is? So now you've explained the market. Then you're going to say, well, let's talk about who else is in this market, the competition. So you characterize the key players, and I suggest you do that via competitive matrix where you're feature by feature comparing your company against the 2 or 3 other main players, not 15 of them, 2 or 3, and show your superiority. It's your product and services differentiation. You demonstrate your advantage through a SWOT analysis that you summarize, and then explain how you will beat them. What's your winning game plan to win against this competition? Of course, you're going to exploit their weaknesses and exploit new opportunities that they can't reach and you can. You ensure that the analysis ties you back to the market segment, shows relevant competitors. In other words, the competitor has to be chasing the same opportunity as you, not just any old thing. And some interesting company to talk about. They got to be ones that you're going to be up against in the market when you try to sell to these very same buyers, that they're going to show up the same place. The one competitor that is often forgotten, and that's the status quo. You think about it, you sell anybody anything, they've got to use it. But whatever the problem was that they are having, they're dealing with it now, whatever way they're dealing with it. So you got to get them off dealing with the problem the way they are now to your new way with your product and or service. So you got to get them to move, and that could be a major process change for them sometimes. It could be expensive in training, for example. So this could be your primary competitor, the status quo. So be aware of that and explain how you're going to get them, how you're going to overcome the status quo in your selling of your product. So it tells why you tell why the customers will buy your product and not somebody else's, and they'll get off the dime on the status quo. So that's competition and how you could characterize it. So now, all you engineers and software guys, you now can explain what this product and or service is in a little bit more detail than you did on the solution slide earlier. But you explain only the key elements of the product and services, not everything. Certainly, the things you'll cover are those features that are most relevant to dealing with your competition. And secondly, how you will satisfy the buyer's needs that you described in slide 1. And then explain why your product will be bought instead of the competitors, as you summarized in the competitive analysis slide earlier. So bring this to life with examples of situations where your features are going to be thought of as outstanding and will drive the primary reasons why they'll buy your product. This is not an opportunity to go through all the feeds and speeds of everything you got. It's talk about those capabilities that are going to be the most important to convince a buyer to buy. So then go on and explain how it's packaged, how it's delivered, and explain your readiness for the market. Okay, we're still in development, or we finished our beta program and we're needing money to launch the business. So most of the money is going to be marketing and sales, blah, blah, blah. But explain your readiness to actually take this product you're talking about to market. The viewer is going to want to know, how far along are you? You better tell them right away here and be proud of it. Now, barriers to entry, I covered briefly earlier in the outline of this presentation, but you may have some technology that represents a barrier to entry. I sometimes call it your secret sauce. It's that proprietary technology that you may have protected via patents or trade secrets that you never reveal to anyone, that gives you your differentiation. Is something nobody else can replicate. Better yet, you're the first to market with it. It gives you a development time to market. No one else can overcome it and solve this problem in the manner in which you are. Without this, you still may have a development time and the market advantage by being first to the market with something, and you stay ahead of the competition, but you protect your intellectual property, software, services, methodology, protecting it as confidential information or trade secrets. There are even patents, copyrights, and trademarks for published information and your brand. But you may be also differentiated and have a barrier to entry by virtue of your unique skills and know-how, which enable you to reach the market with a very compelling solution ahead of everybody else, and you simply stay ahead of them with continued investment in more features, more capabilities, solving more other aspects of the problem you set out to solve in the first place. But there's a lot of things you can do to keep the competition a year or more behind you as you stay ahead by introducing more and more capabilities that they just have a hard time keeping up with. So that's how you deal with barriers to entry, and it could be a very important part of how you present yourself. Then we're now going to get into the areas of what really makes you different and how valuable is it, called a value proposition. So these are concise statements of the value of what you're selling to your buyer. It's the buyer benefits, and quantifiably so. You want to explain the benefit has value in solving the problem that you're going to solve for your customer, so that it becomes a demonstrable return on investment for them. This will explain why they will buy, because the value proposition is a no-brainer and will return to them far more than what they paid for your product or service over time. So be sure you get across the value of your solution to the buyer and how quickly they'll get a return on it. Now we're going to get into marketing. This is all about creating awareness through marketing awareness programs and generating leads. I'm kind of a strong advocate on what marketing is about. It's getting customer leads. Now you hear a lot of other stories about branding and image and all that sort of stuff. They are important, but all said and done, all this marketing work you're going to do is got to generate leads that you can sell to, no matter what kind of business you're in. So your marketing plan will explain how you're going to reach your buyer through the appropriate awareness programs, whether it's online or email, or and that it's affordable, and you know what results you could expect. Be quantifiable about this. Know your stuff. Don't give this kind of a back of your hand, broad brush. Show that you know how to reach this market, and you've got a marketing plan model that'll actually achieve the expected results, because you've explained the marketing productivity ratios that would drive it. Then you can explain your pricing structure, relate it to your revenue model, which you'll explain later. Show that if you have a current pipeline, show it to them. So there's nothing better than to be able to show a potential investor that you're already in contact with potential customers and they're interested in your product. They may be in your beta program, but show that you've got leads, who they are, who the top 10 are, who are the ones that are going to close next. Whatever you can tell them about your success in marketing are like little pieces of gold in the eyes and ears of investors. Tell them these things. So demonstrate that you have relevant, I stress relevant, in the market you're going after, not anywhere. Opportunistic stuff you'll still take, but you want to show them that the intended market actually is buying. Show them that you have market traction. With that under your belt, and you've explained how you're going to get leads, now you're going to talk about how you close these leads. Describe your sales model. Are you a direct sales, indirect? Are you an OEM? In other words, you're licensing your technology to others, but explain what the model is and how it produces revenue. Briefly outline your sales readiness, your sales objectives tied to your marketing plan, because you're taking leads from your marketing plan and converting them to sales. So you have sales productivity to explain why you think you're going to be able to close the number of deals that you're going to say in your revenue plan. So you bring this to life, well, though, with current status. This too, if you close some sales already and you have testimonials and you have what I call lighthouse accounts, early customers that are talking about you, that you can actually refer to investors that may be willing to talk to them. And you talk about your sales progress and who's going to close next. So talk about all these things, this all sales traction investors want to hear about. If you have alliances with sales partners, explain them as well in the context of the marketing channel that you've selected. So marketing and sales brings this to life as a business. And all you can share with the investors as to how this is progressing is going to get you a long ways if you've got good solid traction to talk to them about. It's time to talk about the management team of your company. For each member of your management team, you have founders of the company, and you've got a CEO and a head of engineering, head of sales, head of marketing. These kinds of positions are typically the early ones to have. But you explain for each member of the management team, not every subcontractor and people below, well within your organization, but explain what their role is and who they are and past successes and results they've achieved and other things they've done in their career. What is their entrepreneurial experience and relevant industry experience, which is going to be a key element of having a strong management team. Managerial experience is going to be important too. Another element is, have these people worked together before? So past relationships with each other in the eyes and ears of investors is very attractive. Here's a team that's worked together before and they actually want to do it again. Show that you have some foresight. Talk about what the next steps are for further people on your management team as the company progresses out for the next year or two. So you're demonstrating your maturity, that you know what your strengths and weaknesses are, and you know what additional people are going to be needed on the team and when that's going to be necessary. Audience is going to know that you're focused on the needs of the business, and that will help instill investor confidence in what you're doing. And the team, again, this management team slide is a big convincer. Investors got to believe that you and your team can pull this off. So convince them. Now, towards the end of the presentation, you're now going to show the ever famous financial forecast, spread out over 3 to 5 years, but certainly focused on the first year, with revenue and gross profit and net profit and cash flow dynamics, significant capital purchases that are going to be necessary. So your audience gets a feel for how money is going to flow and in what points in time you're going to be profitable, what point in time you're going to be cash flow positive, things like that. Show that you're using you would be using their money wisely. Be aggressive at this, but be also in a way conservative and don't overpromise. That's a mouthful to say. You've got to show you've got a realistic view of what it's going to take to do it. So that's the financial forecast. You close out the presentation with what I call investor highlights. So now, if you are presenting to investors, you're going to summarize all of what you just told them. That we got a rapidly growing market, a compelling need, a unique winning product, a clear path to market that you've explained, and got a rapid track to financial success. Now, I made all that up, but these are the kinds of points that you're gonna make in your investor highlight summary. It's summarizing the major point, the very top level of what you just have told them in the previous 10 slides. And then you're gonna tell them how much money you want, what you're gonna use it for, what kind of financing instrument you prefer, whether it's debt or equity, the terms that you're looking for, and you go on to explain your exit strategy. Investors want to get their money back too, so you're going to have some form of liquidity event occur, like the sale of your company or investment by a major venture capital firm or something like that takes out all the early stage investors and gives them a return at that point in time. something that gives the investors you're now talking to a return on their investment. All of that has led you to the point where you now are talking about the business, answering the investor questions, and you ask for what are the next steps. And what you're really trying to get to, as I said way early on here, is get to the next meeting. They're not going to write checks right now, but you want them saying, we want to know more, and set up a time for you to meet again, to answer their further questions, and to go through other parts of your business in much more detail. So you're actually trying to get a due diligence meeting as your next step. So that's the way these presentations go. I hope this is helpful, but if you orient the way you talk about your business in the manner I've just described, you're going to have a happy audience and you're going to have success, whoever you're talking to that needs to know about your business and whatever action you want them to take. Hope that's helpful. Again, I'm Bill Warner with EntreDot. Have a great day, and I'd be glad to talk to you about your presentation whenever you're ready to do it.